Okay, we are recording now. And so thank you everyone for coming to be with us this evening to share some knowledge and some companionship. And just it's 4:30-ish by my clock. So to come together with wonderful people at the end of a really long day. Thank you for your attention and your time. And without making a big deal out of it, with further ado, I'm very good at further ado. Uh, I will turn it over to Tony Burke to talk to us about building powerful relationships. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it. Grateful to be here with all of you today. And I agree, it's been a long day. It's been a long week, but it's always about pouring into each other. And that's what I'm super excited about having this conversation and quite humbled, have been asked to speak about this, particularly in the work that I do and how I've lived my life over the years. And still have many, many more years to build new relationships and more powerful relationships. So we're just going to jump right into it. Some of this information is probably not necessarily new, but I think it's something that's important, especially in the world of our change management. When we think about project management, that's kind of the processes of systems, right? But when we talk about change management, we talk about people and how do we work through those changes that we're implementing through processes by implementing changes with people's behaviors and how people interact. And it's critically important as change management professionals that we be able to build those relationships because we're going to have some crucial conversations, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about some tools around crucial conversations as well. So the importance of relationships, I think we all know that, whether it's personal or professional, that's how we live our lives. We know, Beth and I were talking before we get on this, that some days we're drained because we're pouring into other people. So we have to figure out a way to pour back into ourselves as well. So those relationships are twofold, right? We have to always have that pouring into ourselves as well. I spent many, many years in a high-profile profession that I'll share a little later on. And trust was and is still to this day, and it'll come clear at the end of the conversation today. Because if you don't have trust, I probably wouldn't be on this planet today. It's critically important, no matter what the career, to have trust. And we used to say it takes 30 years to get a good career. It takes 30 seconds to F it up. And that's not only personally, but that's also professionally as well. So again, our role in this change management profession is critically important. And if we can't build trust quickly, we're probably not going to be successful in making those changes that we know are critically important, both in the personal and professional lives. Communications, goes without saying. I mean, I think that's the majority of problems in the work we do. It comes down to communications. We got to be crystal clear. We got to be kind. We got to be accountable to ourselves and each other. We got to lean into each other's strengths and beliefs and opportunities to keep it moving forward. If we're not clear at communicating and we're not frequently communicating, again, more likely than not, we're probably going to fail in making the changes that we're trying to make. And it shouldn't end there, right? At the end of the day, once the work is done, you never know when you're going to go back to the table for more change. So if you're truly just making these relationships to be transactional, you're not going to be a good change management professional. These relationships have to be truly authentic. They have to be truly trusted and sustained. And I'm not talking about knowing everybody's birthdays or knowing everybody's family lives or hobbies, but something that connects you to them, something that understands that you understand where they're at in the space, what they're working on, what their interests are, so you can stay connected well beyond the work, because you never know when they're going to come back around again to do more work with them, or you need their thoughts and ideas based on some projects you're working on. So the core principles around relationship building. Trust, I've mentioned that already a lot. Empathy. This day and age, you're hearing a lot of conversation around the term empathy and what that really means. And I think from my perspective, it's critically important because of a lot of the dialogue that's happening right now. People are more on edge than usual. And I think in our space of change, it's not slowing down. Change is going to accelerate every single year. It's going to accelerate more and more and more. And I think we have to have a better understanding of what empathy means and leaning in with empathy, because we can't stop the change. That's the reality, right? The self-awareness piece is really important too. And we'll talk a little bit about this later on. But if you don't know who you are as an individual, I think it's going to be really hard for you to build authentic relationships. We can talk about our careers. We can talk about our interests in education or what we've done in our lives. We can talk about achievements. However, is that really who you are? And that's a question we're going to try and answer towards the end of the conversation today. Because if you don't know who you are, then you're not really aware of maybe your own bias when you're in conversations. You're not necessarily aware of how you're presenting yourself, how you're being received, and vice versa. So I think it's critically important that self-awareness is part of the work you do yourself, leaning into your best friends. My best friend of 27 years doesn't even live in the same city. He lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm based in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And he knows me inside and out. He can call me up. He can call me out. He can call me anything he wants. And the reality is he's helped me become self-aware and also keep me grounded. And I think we all need people like that. But I think it's critically important, as I said a couple times, to know who you are before you go into doing this work. Communications we've talked about and audiences are all different. You may say one thing to one person, go around the corner, say something exactly the same to the next person, and they don't receive it the same way. I think as you continue to build out your network when you're working on a change management initiative, you really have to understand how everybody communicates, how the send receive works, when the send receive works, and that could be anything from some people don't want emails, they want text messages. Some people still want phone calls. Some people want face to face. You have to be the one that makes the difference and makes the impact by deciding how you're going to do that work. The reality is you can only control you. You're not going to control the other person. And if you're going to force them into a space that's not comfortable, that's not going to help you build that relationship. So know your audience, know how they want to communicate and what that looks like. You know, we call them power mapping in the work that I do. Mapping relationships is a similar concept. Power mapping is really about who has the power to give you what you want, who are the influencers that will give you the opportunity to get to the person that has the power you want, and who are those people that will open those doors to get to the influencers to get to the power. And as you're mapping out your audience, it is so important to understand who those people are. How they work, how they tick, how they hear you. And I think just taking that time, I know it sounds like a lot of planning, but it's critically important, again, to know who those people are inside and out as best you can. Know where their pain points are. Know if there's history in the conversations from before you even got involved with doing the change management work with them. It's really important. The past, present, and future, use that a lot in our conversations with having very high level meetings to understand where we've been, what the intention was back then, where we're at now, and where do we want to all go together. I think it's so important to know who's in the room, who can give you what you want, and who are those influencers that are going to encourage that to happen. Tailored communications, again, critically important. It depends on who you're talking to, whether you're talking to somebody and you're using weekend language, or you are going to use something very crisp and simple and to the point. Had a conversation just the other day. If you ever text me and then you text me the next day, I'm going to say good morning or good day. And I've had many, many people say to me, why do you do that? And I said, it's a new day. But we were communicating via text the day before. Like, gone are the days of dear Tony or dear Beth, right? We just jump right into the conversation. And I have had two people that I mentor in the business community, and I've said to them, I do that to put you on pause, to reflect for a second on how you're going to show up for the conversation. It's as simple as saying good morning. But I get them all the time. And I get it in our business space, we use Teams chat. Get it all the time. First thing in the morning. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, good morning. How are you this morning? I'm very intentional in doing that because I want everybody to pause for a second and acknowledge the relationship that's there. We think we don't have the time to do that. I think we're doing ourselves and the people that we're working with or that we're confiding in or that we're building relationship with, to not just shake a hand and say hello. Look them in the eye, say good morning, whether it's I am text messages or whatnot. Maybe you call me old-fashioned, but we're still humans. And we have to stay human focused and human centric. And that to me also shows that you care about each other. Now, I had somebody push back on me just recently. We were talking about, oh, there's no way. I would be tired of you doing that. Well, guess what? You're going to be tired of me doing that. And well, why? Because I just want to get to the point. I said, I understand that, but how much time does that really take just to bring a greeting to the conversation? And she's like, now I'm seeing her doing it. So it's just that simple pause, right? Which is, I think, just changes the conversation to say, hey, I'm here. I notice you. I see you. I hear you. I'm going to open up the conversation in a very positive fashion, not just jump into the conversation. Again, I don't want to review all these. Many of you are professionals. You know about the importance of active listening, tailored messaging, nonverbal cues, emotional intelligence. What I will do is tell you a story about my daughter, who I love dearly. And, technology is changing how we interact. We all know that. And it's very intentional when we go to a restaurant that you lift up your head, open your mouth, open your eyes, and have a direct conversation with somebody when you're ordering. We're losing that opportunity to meet people where they're at, like face on front. And I've had lots of people ask me the question, why do you look me straight in the eye? Why shouldn't I? I mean, I want to be attentive. I'm showing you that I care. And I think we're too often doing this, right? But I heard people, often in meetings you'll hear, well, I'm sorry, I'm actually paying attention, but I'm just making notes. That's okay. That means you're managing the expectations of people. But if you're just over here doing stuff all the time, even on the screens, you're not really paying attention. We think we multitask. We don't do multitask well at all. And that's why I think it's, again, I'm just excited about the opportunity to look at somebody in the eye, give them a handshake, have a conversation, be intentional with it. And that means a lot. That's really allowing you to grow into that relationship. Well, finding common ground, mirroring, matching. I've already done some of that when I'm talking today. I said, "Dear Beth." I was very intentional in saying, "Dear Beth." I want Beth to know that she's in the room. We greeted, Chris now. We greeted Caitlin. It's really important that we're doing that. And when we're having dialogue, especially in crucial conversations in our change management world, what I hear you saying is, I mean, that's a classic social work counselor conversation, right? What I hear you saying is this. Well, what you're doing is, again, you're acknowledging you're hearing them. You're showing appreciation of what they're saying, and you're building more trust each and every time that you do that. So here's a couple of tools around conflict resolution. Obviously, calm, curious. Often when I'm in tough conversations, and I think we all get in those tough conversations when it comes to our change management space because we're making people get uncomfortable because it's something new. Ask questions instead of giving the solution. Maybe you know the solution. Ask questions. Be curious. What's the challenge they're having with it? How find out what their understanding of the issue is. A lot of times it's back to communications, right? I statements, big time when you're in this space. I feel, this is what you're saying. I feel uncomfortable right now. I feel I'm not really understanding. I feel like, how can we move forward together? What does that look like? A really good one as well. The empathy and problem solving, we touched on that as well, but the latter technique is really a newer one for me that I'm still learning about. But it is about data. And I do in my work use a lot of data reference points. More and more often we're hearing in spaces about show me the data. We got big data out there, some good, some bad. But that gives us a direction to start with. And it shows what the problem is if you've got a data point to work with. Then you can kind of lean into the intent, and then you can kind of share about, well, these are my feelings about that. Do I really think that's absolutely accurate, or is there something else that we're not factoring into those data points? And then how do we move forward to make sure that we're confident in what we're doing? So it's a step-by-step process, and you're trying to break it down numerous times. I'm sure you all have done it too. You're in conversations with a whole bunch of leaders, and you realize if you're truly sitting back, you've got 4 different issues going on, and they think it's only one. I just had that the other day. We're talking about strategic planning, then we're talking about a strategy, and then we're talking about a tactic, and then we're talking about a tool, but it's all under one agenda item. But it was 4 different things. So again, this is an opportunity for us to break it down in steps, use that ladder technique so that you can solve each one of those problems, or at least move through the process of solving each one of those problems. So that's not just one big issue. You break it down a little bit easier, make it simpler. This is one that we use a lot in the work that I do. It's called SBI. Many of you may have heard of it before, the situation, behavior, impact. I recently had a situation where my vice president said to me, try this tool. And I'm like, oh yeah, here's another tool. Here we go again. This is new, right? But it is being used across our organization. And you really just talk about in your mind, you talk about the situation and what happened in a meeting. In this particular case, I'm thinking about it was a very inappropriate conversation because the individual was not in a great place and really derailed the whole conversation. So I had that in my head. That was the situation. The behavior was they were elevated their voice. They were very visually distraught and angry, but were not open to any feedback or any suggestion at that point in time. So I knew that's the behavior. That's what I observed. Unprofessionalism, not open to conversation, shut down. The impact was the other people in the room were like, well, this isn't going anywhere. And that wasn't the intention. So knowing that, took a one-on-one conversation with the individual. And the success I learned was once I do the situation, explain it back, share it back, I should say, not explain, share it back, talk about the behavior that I observed, the impact of everybody else in the room, and just shut up. Just stop. Too often we try to explain it away because we're nervous because it's a crucial conversation. If you stop after impact and be quiet, the person that was in that situation that did the actual behavioral challenging issue stops. They reflect. They think. And in this case, he right away said within about 30, 40 seconds of the pause, oh yeah, I guess I wasn't in a great place that day. I guess we need to move through this. I guess we need to work on this. What's the next steps? That's the door opening opportunity, right? This model is simple, but truly effective. And the key is situation, behavior, impact, and then shut up. Quite honestly, pause, be uncomfortable in the space, because that's where sometimes solutions get solved in the silence. No different than dating. I mentioned it at the beginning about sustaining relationships, right? We should be celebrating opportunities. You know, we were talking in our ACMP meeting last night about November and Thanksgiving and reflection. And we really want to do that around the work that we're doing as we're building out this chapter. Take that pause, take that time. Quite often, we think we haven't done much until we take inventory of what we have done and actually intentionally do it and realize, oh my, we have done a lot in a short period of time. Too often, I don't know about you all, but I often feel like, okay, today is what day? Thursday. And like, what did I do? You know, my partner, she's a great individual. And she often says to me at the end of the day, I don't know what I did today. And she manages a very large team, manages a large portfolio. And like she said, I didn't get anything done. I didn't get it. Whoa, slow down here. Yeah, you manage a team. Well, yeah, but I just had conversation. I didn't get anything off of my list. Yeah, but you're managing a team. You're leading a team. That is. your role. That is your responsibility. And that's just in one day, right? Too often, we do lots of big things in our lives and we don't really take inventory of it. And here we are 6 months later feeling like we didn't do anything. Like we are so anxious about success nowadays. I think more important than ever in our lives, at least in my short life on this planet, we don't stop enough to celebrate the little things. We think it's only good enough to celebrate the big, bad, bodacious things, right? The huge things. I got a note from my 72-year-old mentor yesterday saying, "Hey, miss you, hope you're well." That's great, right? I mean, that's fantastic. So even in our professional careers as change managers, if we're going to do this truly authentic space, we gotta stop and acknowledge the little wins too. Because we know as change managers, that change train could be 6 months, could be 6 years, could be 16 years. There's always little wins. It's that one more meeting you got that you didn't think you were going to get. It's the, hey, great job on an email. That's a good thing, right? Celebrate those, share those out with friends and partners and stakeholders that are in your group, because you got to move through this stuff. And in order to do that, you got to celebrate those little wins. So in closing, a little bit of an exercise. This is something that I personally try to adhere myself to, is hot relationships. I know it sounds funny, but my focus is three things: honest, open, and trusted. That's what my HOT stands for. I work in the government field, and coalition building, collaboration is super, super important. You have to have participant engagement. Many times, whether we're 2D or 3D, you will have people that won't engage in a bigger group. As a change manager, it's your responsibility to reach out to them. Many people have said to me, well, I don't herd cats. I don't herd cats. They're grown adults. They can use their, no, 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 no. If you truly want to engage everybody that has a stake in the situation you're working in, it is your role and responsibility to reach out to those quiet people one-on-one or on an email or a phone call. Where are they at? Otherwise, it will come back to bite you in the butt sooner or later. So participant engagement, it's not 70%, it's got to be 100%. Even if it's an acknowledgement that they're okay, that means you got the okay. Otherwise, you're not doing your job as a change manager. Networking, super, super important. You know how many times you hear information that you didn't expect coming because you're just having casual conversations? Happens all the time, right? So if you're well networked, you can start seeing things that may be coming from your blind spots, right? Maybe coming from the areas that you're not thinking about because you are networked, or somebody just says to you, hey, by the way, this is what I heard. Case in point, we were at a national meeting last week, and I spoke up and acknowledged a new program that we rolled out that I found huge value for. And it was basically a compliment. And the national VP who rolled it out was thankful that I made the comment. But then earlier this week, had a conversation with the senior VP and the staff person that was acknowledged, and openly admitted to those two people that she had bristled at my compliment. So that staff person let me know she may have said one thing, but she did something different. Now, if I didn't have a trusted relationship with that staff person, I probably never would have heard that. So now I'm curious, why did she bristle at a compliment? And she did not talk to my VP either, who I report directly to. So it's still, the reason I share that is you have to hear that stuff so that you can be sensitive to what's going on around you, and make yourself open, make yourself a safe space so that you can just be aware. I'm not going to approach her about why she bristled. I just know there's some reason that she didn't like my compliment. But it's an awareness thing again, and it's truly, truly important. Mutual respect and trust and communications are the other two, and I hope you get some of that from my conversation with you all today. I'm grateful, as I said, to be part of this group and what we're doing. I think it's critically important. My story in coming to the change management space, I was, in my mind, I've always been a change manager. Some people called me an a-hole because I push, or bullish because I push. I'm a firm believer in change. And in between jobs, about well, yeah, 3.5 years ago now, I literally Googled change management. I was feeling like I was on an island. And like, why? And I had an executive coach, and she's like, you know what, Tony? Sometimes as a change manager, you are on an island. And sometimes your best job is to hang your own shingle up because you don't settle for status quo. Sometimes you're going to go through your career as a change professional and move from occupation to occupation. Why? Because that's what you do. That's what you're hired for. Then when it becomes routine, they're done with you. They're finished, right? And I think that was an aha moment for me. So when I Googled change management, I came across the Association of Change Management Practitioners, and it was like this aha light bulb moment. It's like, whoa, like there's a community. Now I don't feel so alone. And I think going through the process and learning about our personal lives, learning about what's going on in our world, more of us need these skills just to do everyday work. And I'm really, really proud of what we're doing. So with that being said, that's how I got into this space, even though I've done it my whole career, didn't really know it to be a practitioner. Now I am. I challenge everybody to continue to grow in this space. So with that being said, just like to do, I kind of touched on this already, so I'm just going to continue. This is really just about the work that I do in government relations, and why it's so important, as we all know, especially in this day and age where there's, as much as we see divisiveness publicly, outwardly facing, I can absolutely say to you, the legislators, the elected officials, they all go in wanting to make change. They all go in with positive intent. They lead with positive intent. Regardless of what you see externally, because I work in this space, they all have good hearts. And you have to see that, right? There's just complexities with anything we do. You pull one lever over here, there's an unintended consequences over here. It's not simple. It's super, super complex. So it goes back to why powerful relations are so important, particularly in the field that I work in, is because of what's going on in our community more so than ever before. So with that being said, the exercise. There's a few of us on the call right now. We're going to do it as a group. I'm going to start by saying to everybody, I want you to introduce yourselves, but there's 3 parameters. You can't talk about your career, you can't talk about your achievements, and you can't talk about your education. So introduce yourselves. So we're going to give you about a minute